Good evening and welcome to Charlotte County Television's coverage of the New Brunswick provincial election. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Tonight we're at the Garcelon Civic Center in St. Stephen, where the Chamber of Commerce has organized the St. Croix Candidates Forum, where the public will be able to submit questions to the candidates. Now Mike Corbett will make introductions and explain the format.
Well, good evening, everyone. My apologies for us running a bit late. The fault lies on me. I said I could be... I figured on the way down I might just blame the fact that the Old Bay Road wasn't paved, that maybe that might come up tonight as a topic, but I really can't use that as an excuse, so my apologies. Thank you all for coming out. It's hot. It's hot here. It's hot in this room. It's standing room only. So listen, thank you all for coming out tonight. So before we get started and we lay down the rules and stuff like that, I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to these four people that have done this. This is something that's really quite a big deal. I mean, we have a lot of political experience in this room. I see many people that are presently politicians, people that have been in the past. To put your name forward is sometimes a little bit of a thankless job, I'm sure many people would say. It's an awful lot of work. It's an awful lot of effort. It's impossible to make everybody happy all of the time, but politicians put their heart and souls into this. So we, and as a community, are lucky enough to have four people that were that cared enough about the community in which to be able to say, yes, I'm willing to put my name forward to do the work, to represent the people in which we love and know so well. So a quick round of applause to say thank you to you four people for putting your name forward. So thank you. So on to the rules of it. We call this a political debate, but it is actually not a political debate. It's actually a get to know your candidate and the candidate's parties. So it's not a traditional debate in the sense where there's going to be a lot of bashing back and forth. There will be none of that. There will be no catcalling. There will be no insulting. There will be no meanness. So they gave me this a number of years ago. It's very blunt. It's very hard. And I'm not afraid to use it. That's the saddest part. So we're going to be very kind here tonight. The message is the strength. The belittling is not the strength. So we want to hear what they have to say, what they believe. And the very coolest thing is that all the questions come from you. So these are not pre-done questions. We have them right in front of us, the messages that you guys want to hear about, the issues that are important, not to everybody, but the issues that are important to us here in this community. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to have each candidate is going to have a 5-minute opener. That is where they're going to get a chance to tell you about themselves, tell you about their party, tell you about what they're passionate about. At the end of it, they're each going to have a 2-minute closing. These times are extremely strict. We have she's on the clock. I said it's not 3, it's 3 minutes. Sorry. So it's a 5-minute opener and a 3-minute closer. So you're going to hear lots of dings. People, when you hear the ding, respect the ding because you don't want the bang. So ding or the bang. You got two choices here. So we're going to get through as many of these questions as we can. I do occasionally change the wording of it. I do not mean to do that to take away from the essence of the question. It's merely for the effort of time because we're going to try to get through as many questions as we can. Each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to answer every single question. Everybody's going to have a chance to answer first. Everybody's going to have a chance to answer second. It's how we're going to row it. This has gone by alphabetical order and alphabetical order only, and that's how we'll run the night through the up and down the table. So what's going to happen is we're going to get to it right away. We're going to ask the candidates, so for this one here, because it's a good 5-minute talk, why don't you come up and take advantage of the podium for your message? If you want, or is that going to screw up the camera? Never mind, sorry, but this is being televised, so sorry, we're not going to be able to do that. So you're going to be using the actual mics in front of you, and thank you again for Charlotte County TV for being here this evening. That's extremely nice. We appreciate that. So let's get started at it right away. In alphabetical order, we're going to begin with John first, and we're going to go by first names on this one. So John, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. I know Mike's been doing this for a very long time, and he's certainly very respectable in his approach, and I appreciate everything that he's done for our community, and I appreciate Terry and the entire chamber with Tara for putting tonight's event on. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come out tonight. Tonight's an important occasion. So first off, I'd like to thank all the candidates that are running here tonight. Politics is certainly a it can be a fickle business at times, and it's never easy, and I applaud them for putting their name forward, and I certainly look forward to continuing to have dialogue with them throughout the rest of this campaign and for many years to come, as I know I've had many discussions with them in the past. I am John Ames. I am the Liberal candidate for St. Croix. I was raised here in St. Stephen. This is where I still reside with my family. I have my adoring and patient wife Holly and my children Elijah and Emma. We love this place. We want to continue to raise our children here and continue to have a great life for them here. It's such a beautiful place, and there's so much to do, and there's so many great people to interact with all the time, and I'm very proud to call it home. I'm re-offering to continue to help move projects along in this community. There are lots of projects that people are looking forward to, and there's lots of projects we've accomplished over the years. I've spoken with many people and groups on many ideas, and it's extremely rewarding to see them get help, and it's extremely rewarding to see them do well. As a resident of this area and a former deputy mayor here in St. Stephen, I wanted to gain further traction on seizing our potential. I believe we have all done a great job on this. It's a collective effort from all levels of government, private citizens, businesses, groups, and nonprofits. I am deeply passionate about seeing our area grow, and I'm excited with new prospects that continue to further enhance the quality of life of our region and our hometown. As MLA, I have learned to collaborate and work with nonprofits, businesses, municipalities to gain results on initiatives and projects. I have had and continue to have a great working relationship with all elected officials at each level, regardless of what their politics may be, and I am eager to continue to do that. As minister, I have worked with the same groups locally and throughout the province to help highlight our unique area, working with private and public sectors to bring further exposure and attention our way. Tourism, heritage, and culture was an ideal place for a member from St. Croix in the provincial cabinet. We have so much to show in the entire world right here in our little corner. Our history is rich with legacies throughout many turning points of our country and the world. Our diverse geographic makeup and our industries are ideal for welcoming visitors and returning families that want to also call this place home. I am humbled by the way we all work together when there are challenges, and I'm excited about how we can embark upon that potential further in the future. There's so much to offer here in St. Croix. Each community has their unique way of standing out, but I believe that they all complement one another, as a region should. As a government, we know that healthcare, education, and growing the economy are the priorities of New Brunswickers. We have seen our economy grow every year, investing more in healthcare and education while also reducing our deficit by more than half, and also on track to eliminate it in a steady, responsible way without making deep cuts in the programs that New Brunswickers hold dear. We have clearly heard from residents that they do not want to see reductions in targets to be met on the back of healthcare. We have implemented a 10-year education plan to improve outcomes and better prepare our young people for the future, to create lifelong learners, support educational leaders, and provide stability in our systems. We also have a family plan with 7 pillars of access to primary and acute care, promoting wellness, supporting people with mental challenges, fostering healthy aging and support for seniors, advancing women's equality, reducing poverty, and supporting people with disabilities. About 4 years ago, I was at the Charlotte County Hospital with my son Eli. He wasn't breathing at the time. It was one of the most terrifying moments of my entire life, and I don't wish that upon anybody, and I never want to relive that again. But I am in debt to the staff, the administration, and all the workers at our local hospital here at Charlotte County Hospital. And that is why I've always continued to uphold what we have as a beautiful facility here, and I will continue to do that as an MLA. Today, Eli is a healthy young boy, and some of you may have seen him at a few events that I've been at, giving speeches. He's there right on my, pulling at my pant leg and smiling as he usually does. And he has grown, and so have I, and we want to continue to grow in this community. This journey has taught me a lot about people's experiences, including my own. It has made me so proud to be from this area and to serve the great people from here. And I thank God every day for the family, friends, community I have rooted here. Thank you.
Donna, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Is this on? Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. And thank you for the organizers and everyone else. First, I recognize that we are on traditional Passamaquoddy territory. Secondly, I want to let you know that I am the working class and that I want to represent you in the New Brunswick legislature. I'm hearing overwhelmingly that you want better government that reflects your values. Values that will put support and put its citizens all towards a better future. Why am I running? The current political system is not working. Those with the most acquire even more, and those with the least are getting little support, and they are losing ground. Many cannot afford rent and utilities. As a result, they go without food, medicine, and transportation. The marginalized are struggling to meet basic needs. More and more seniors must keep working just to survive. They struggle to pay property taxes, and they struggle to meet their health care needs. Children fall through the cracks in the education system. Many of them complete school and still cannot get jobs in their field. Many employees work years on end at minimum wage. Often they face tough working conditions with complicated schedules, limited working hours, and at best, seasonal employment. We lack affordable housing for people on low incomes, seniors, and those with disabilities. We lack adequate healthcare resources, including preventative programs and intervention services. We are short of family doctors and also short of psychiatrists and mental health support staff. I see these struggles, your struggles, firsthand. I see big industry getting huge tax breaks. I see our forests, waterways, and habitats in trouble. We are all seeing the effects of climate change. We need a better way. I offer you that today. That better way is with the vision of the New Brunswick Green Party, a party committed to live within our ecological and financial means, and to make a better community for all. Do you want your future to look like the last 35 years? That's when food banks appeared. They were created as a short-term measure to bridge families waiting for unemployment insurance. They are still here today, and more people need to use them. Food banks are a growth industry we don't want. There is a better future. I'm proud to present it to you tonight with the Green Party platform. It is a platform for people. Elect me, and together we will end the handouts to large profitable corporations. We will use that money to help small family businesses to diversify our economy. Elect me, and we will protect New Brunswickers from climate change, investigate why flooding is occurring and how we can adapt to it, and replace bridges with temporary crossings when they wash out so that no one is left stranded. Elect me, and we will protect our health with more access to medical care, and we will stop the spraying of glyphosate and other cancer-causing pollutants. We believe that every person should have enough income to meet their needs with dignity, and the Green Party will raise minimum wage and increase social assistance rates. A green government will make the public transportation a public service. This includes a permanent year-round ferry to Campobello Island. A green government will care about rural livelihoods like fishing, farming, clam digging. That's the lifeblood of our rural communities. Our future depends on who we elect. Going with the status quo, be that Liberal or Conservatives, we will not help us deal with climate change, poverty, and the dwindling health services. I will help establish a government that does justice to this generation and the next. I will learn from those who elect me as well, those who do not. I promise to do my best, to do my duty to you, and promote a healthy way forward for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Greg, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chamber of Commerce, for putting this on. It's important. I've been to quite a few of them. And Mike, just to tell you how long ago that was, I think Judge Rice was the moderator back then, so that's a day or two ago. But thank you, everyone, for coming out. I think it is important to get a sense of who we are, what we're doing. I've been out of politics for 7 years, and there's some younger members of the audience here, including the mayor, that I want to remind of some of the things I have done in the past in terms of my track record. I'm not saying to boast, but I just want to put it in perspective to show you that I can work with every level of government and I can work with every political party out there, which I've had to do in some of the bigger projects when we put them together. Well, let's start with the Garcelon factory, an important part of St. Stephen, employed several hundred people at the time. They needed a new factory. They came to the Conservative government. Between Fred McCain and myself, we built, with federal money, an ACOA grant. That was when ACOA was giving out sizable sums of money to do important things. That factory was built with the biggest grant ever given by ACOA in Atlantic Canada. I did take some criticism for that, but what I was looking at is the 200 to 300 people that worked in that factory that stood to lose their jobs. So I made the decision and we opened it, I think, if my memory serves me right, in 1989, could have been 1990, so that's way beyond the memory span of many of you. And on top of that, of course, when they moved the old factory to the new factory, what do you do with the old factory? Well, a lot of folks wanted it torn down. The federal government bought it. I took a stand against destroying it or just taking a wrecking ball to it, and we bought the building for $500,000. Contacted Dick Carpenter in Moncton, and with the help of Brian Mulrooney, we transferred 35 federal jobs, GST jobs, into that building. The Liberals came to power in 93, and over time they eliminated every one of those jobs, transferred them to Moncton or St. John, Liberal government. And more recently, of course, the Civic Center is here because of the work that I did, along with the mayors and the provincial government as well. But so I can partner, we can partner with all parties, all people. In fact, Sean Graham was the premier at the time, but it didn't hurt us or inhibit us in any way of working together to get important things done. When I look at St. Stephen, we had a strategic plan, I guess, nothing written down for the town. I mean, there's certain things that you have to have. First of all, you have to have people working, earning wages, paying taxes. And one of the things that we had to do, of course, was get the traffic, and a lot of you can remember that when the traffic was lined up here to Moffat Dodge every day of the week. We needed a third bridge. So in that one, I was dealing with 6 levels of government. I hired for $0 Jim Purcell to work in my office along with Judy and all the rest of my staff, Fred Blair. We went to work on securing the funding for that third bridge. We got it. We completed the highway at a cost of $800 million. Those are significant infrastructure projects that make a real difference in a town and a community. So I have a track record that I'm very proud of. When I retired 7 years ago, I had no idea that I'd be running for office again. And people ask me why. Well, very basic. I'm not happy with what I see happening in Fredericton. The government in Fredericton now has a $15 billion accumulated debt. So in New Brunswick, every day we're paying $2 million in interest payments on debt. That's close to $800 million a year, over $800 million a year, in interest payments only. In New Brunswick today, as I stand here, interest payments are the 3rd largest expenditure of government, exceeded only by education and health care. That is a path for disaster. Premier Gallant has showed total disregard for debt, total disregard for how much money he's spending. I don't think he completely understands it. I mean, these are scary numbers. One of the biggest and the scariest numbers in the whole thing, of course, is the labor force itself. We've got the lowest number of people ever in New Brunswick in the labor force.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you, good sir.
Well, I'll continue at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. Joyce, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mike. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It really is a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'm both honored and proud to be standing here asking for your vote to be our MLA representing the People's Alliance of New Brunswick. A little bit about me, for those of you who don't know me. I was born and raised right here in, well, no, not in town limits, Alan, but in what I thought was St. Stephen. I was really offended today. I found out I wasn't really from St. Stephen. But I was born right here in this area, got married right here in this area. My husband, Dwayne, will have been married 30 years this year. We stayed in this area to raise our family. We've had 6 children, and right now we have 6 wonderful grandchildren. As far as my professional designations go, I am a licensed broker in the insurance and investment field, but that's been kind of put aside right now so that I can focus on this campaign, because I'll tell you, it's a full-time job. But enough about me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll put to you tonight that never before in the history of this province has an election been so important. Never has your vote been so critical. Our province is in terrible debt. The situation is enormous. And election cycle after election cycle, we see the back and forth of accusations and promises that seem to be embedded in a system that almost makes us feel like we have to be bribed with our own money for things that should just be part of good governance. In contrast, the People's Alliance Party is trying to save you money. We aren't promising the moon because we know you're not asking for it. What you're asking for is to be able not just to survive, but to thrive in this beautiful province that we call home. Our policies are built from the grassroots of the citizens of New Brunswick. They are all about common sense. It is time for us, the voters of this riding and the voters of this province, to chart a new direction for the province. And you can do that by electing your MLAs from the People's Alliance Party of New Brunswick. Tonight, here in this room, we're going to be talking about very important issues of concern to you, because you're the ones bringing the issues to the table. Our party is proposing workable solutions for those issues, solutions that will bring the positive and desperate change that we need to this area and to this province. We have solid positions. Our detractors would sometimes say that the only position we talk about is bilingualism, but that is absolutely not the case. We know that we need systemic and deep change to the political system of New Brunswick, and we have a plan to address that. We are going to build sustained economic development through collaboration with business groups. We are going to eliminate the small and medium-sized income tax on business so they can have a level playing field to thrive in this province. They are the backbone of our economy. We're going to remove politics from the decision-making in education, letting the teachers and the professional associations guide those decisions. We're going to ban the aerial spraying of glyphosate, the herbicide that kills our hardwood forests. That's what the citizens have been asking for, and we said that many months ago. We are going to enact simple but fundamental changes in how we provide primary health care to you. These simple changes will absolutely reduce waiting times, both in ER and for surgical waits, and they will increase access to health care, because having 25,000 people in the province with no access to a family doctor is unacceptable. We will put needs before wants. We will live within our means, and we will put an end to the increasing debt and continued pattern of deficits. And we can do that without continuing to raise taxes and fees, because as I look across this room and I look at my own situation, I know that we have nothing more to give. We are taxed to the max. So the People's Alliance, yes, here's the issue. We will talk about the language issue, and we are one of the only parties that will. We are losing many of our educated professionals. We are proud to be a bilingual province, absolutely. But it's how we define what that means that is critical. Nobody should have to leave the province to work in today's situation with the technology we have just because they aren't bilingual. When you have a paramedic in St. Stephen who can't get a full-time job with 8 years of seniority, that's a problem that needs to be fixed. Thank you. Having ambulances unstaffed, putting our citizens at risk, because we refuse to give the jobs to somebody who can only speak one language, whether it's English here in the South or French in the North, is wrong. We are going to bring common sense solutions, and I'm confident in presenting my ideas to you tonight. Thank you.
That was perfect. Thank you all very much. That's great. Before we get started, as long as the microphones are all fine, can everybody hear okay? That's one of the questions I forgot. Everybody's fine? Okay, in the back, that's great. So we have a pile of very, very good questions. I want to get through these questions. I want to get through every single question if possible. I know that there's more out. So if something is coming up throughout the evening, the question wasn't asked in the way that you would like to have it asked, or you come up with a different topic that you're not getting, Richard and the guys are still back there. Please just go in, write it down, pass it out, and they'll get it to me. So the goal here, guys and ladies, is to get through as many of these questions as possible. So you have 2 minutes to answer your question. There is no rebuttal. That's your 2 minutes. My ask is that if you're done, you're done, and then we get to just use more time at the end. You're welcome to use your full 2 minutes. When I beat it, let's just end it and move on. My ask is that you remain seated during the question, if that's okay, if everybody's all right with that, because of the cameras set where they are. If you insist on standing up, I'm sure we can adjust. So thank you very much. Okay, so 2 minutes per question. What we're going to do is we're going to go in order. As I said, everybody will answer one question first, and everybody will answer one question last. So because we started with John first, the very first question will go to Donna first, then Greg, then Joyce, then John. Then Greg will get the next question first, and back and forth. So let's get right down to the fun part. So 2 minutes, that's the timer. And when you hear the ding, so you don't really need to give the 15-second. When you hear ding, wrap it up, she's done. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, let's get started. Our very first question is one that you guys have actually mentioned. I've actually heard that one. I've read about it in the newspaper. This is the perfect question. I'm so looking forward to hearing the answer on this one from each of you. And that is, what is your position on a year-round ferry to and from Campobello Island? I will read that again, starting with Donna first. What is your position on a year-round ferry to and from Charlotte County, to and from Campobello Island?
Thank you. Thank you. It's not working.
Are we okay? Sorry.
Hello? Can anyone hear me? No. Let me try this one. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. I believe 100% plus that Campobello and mainland New Brunswick absolutely do need ferry access year-round. It's been long overdue. I know many Campobello residents who live in St. Stephen now, and they say it would bring economic prosperity to the island, who desperately are losing their population, losing their hope, and the economy is all but gone on that island. They have to leave the island and cross 2 border crossings and drive hundreds of kilometers all the time just for basic needs, necessities, and amenities. I fully believe that year-round ferry from Campobello Island to the mainland of New Brunswick will promote economic opportunities for both mainland and Campobello, as well the tourism that we could get, bringing people from Campobello to New Brunswick when they're visiting Campobello would be instrumental in continuing the tourism model that we so need in this province of New Brunswick. So again, I do fully support that. I also believe that it should be public transportation paid for by the government. Now that doesn't mean that we don't have user fees applicable, but we absolutely need this ferry, and it's long overdue for our residents of Campobello. Another thing that's come to mind is that it's an investment in Campobello. Why wouldn't we invest in that little corner of the world? Our province is full of opportunities, full of people who are engaging, who want to be contributing members of New Brunswick, and I think it's time that the people of Campobello were welcomed to mainland and didn't have to drive hours and kilometers to go from border to border. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pass it down to Greg. So Greg, what is your position on a year-round ferry to and from Campobello?
I support a year-round ferry for Campobello, and again, as Donna mentioned, I mean, it'd have to be a government-operated ferry. But I just want to step through some of the issues regarding a ferry and the funding for a ferry. I mean, first of all, a ferry's not going to happen overnight. I mean, if all the studies were in, I know the Liberals, federally and provincial, have got a consultant's report that I think they're working on it now. Is that correct, John? And they're working on that now. But I mean, there's a number of unknown quantities out there in regards to the ferry. Exactly where would it dock? Is it going to be one ferry or two ferries, like, for example, Deer Island? Is the ferry going to use the facilities out of Deer Island? Well, Deer Islanders don't want them to use it. Some have suggested that St. Andrews doesn't want additional traffic downtown. So basically, we're looking at major infrastructure to get a ferry up and running. Now, on top of that, let's be practical. In terms of going to Fredericton, how much money are you asking for at this point? Is it 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, 100 million? I mean, these are tough jobs for MLAs, regardless of the party, to come up with that kind of money, because it means that you've got to have support from basically everyone in caucus, including obviously the Premier, to make something like that happen, and the transportation needs within the province. So I'm just telling you, I support it, but the reality of it happening quickly is very remote. I'd like for it to happen immediately, but it's not going to. All we have to do is witness the third bridge up there 30 years ago. I can subtract 30 years from my life, and that was an issue. It took 30 years to get that bridge built. It was built on my watch, but all the complications with building anything, any kind of infrastructure is very, very difficult. Now slap me in the side of the head when I'm finished.
You're done.
I'm done, okay.
Pass the phone on to Joyce. Joyce, what is your position on year-round ferry to and from Campobello?
My position is absolutely 125% in support of year-round access to the mainland without going through the U.S. Council has, on Campobello, has voted that, and since Campobello is in my riding as MLA, I am their voice to Fredericton, and absolutely I would fight for that even if it weren't something that I myself could see the sense in doing. There are feasibility studies that have to be done, of course, in any situation where we're undertaking safety, but my issue is this. If the freshwater ferries in New Brunswick are considered part of our highway system and are publicly funded and assured they're kept running, then absolutely our citizens on Campobello need to have access to the mainland that's overseen by the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, absolutely.
Thank you, Joyce. John, what is your position on a year-round ferry to and from Campobello?
Well, thank you. That's still not working. Thanks. The communal microphone. So this is a very, very important topic, not just for the people of Campobello. This is important for anybody that's in the tourism sector, especially on the Fundy Coast. We have the world's largest tides. We have so much to offer people throughout the world right here in our neck of the woods, and having access to one of the best, most beautiful islands is certainly paramount. There are a lot of variables at play, and we cannot just arbitrarily make a unilateral decision without looking at those variables. And I side with Greg in the fact that, you know, we need to look at what those variables are before we can make a concentrated effort in instilling service. Now, is the service going to continue to be a private service and we subsidize different shoulder seasons of that service? Is this a public, completely taxpayer-funded service? Is it a service, as Donna mentioned, that's going to have user fees? There's a lot of variables as to how it's going to be run, and there's a lot of variables as to where it's going to go. Is it going to continue to go between Deer Island and Campobello, or is it going to go to the mainland, to either St. Andrews, near St. Stephen, or near Letite? There's a lot of options there as well. And I have met with the group that's, I know there's some members here today, and I'll continue to collaborate with them, as well as the leaders on Campobello, as well as leaders in Ottawa, because if a solution is going to be found, it's going to be together, working through all levels of government and trying to ensure that we have the best possible solution, most practical way possible, to ensure that the residents and the tourists and everyone involved can get back and forth between the mainland and Campobello. That's my stance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I think we have our mic situation completely fixed now, so I'll need to get another. Okay, so that was great. Thank you all very much. That was great candor. I like the 2-minute timeline. As long as everybody's okay with how we're going, we're just going to keep right on trucking through. Give everybody a chance to go a little bit deeper if they wish to, so a little bit more time. Now, next question. So, Greg, you are first on this question. Joyce, you will be next, and down the line. So, this question here is something that's going to be important to everybody in the room. It has to be. So it's a two-part question, so it's have some fun with this one. It's, do you support the Charlotte County Hospital as a full-service hospital? And the second part of that is, how would you address the OR crisis and the physician recruitment?
Okay. Oh, thank you, Mike. No, I support the Charlotte County Hospital. It would, it's an institution here. It has served the community well and will continue to serve the community well if it gets the proper government funding and attention, which it hasn't in recent years. I used to sit on the board of the Charlotte County Hospital back, I guess, 30 years ago, maybe longer, I don't know. But I've got to, obviously it was a real learning exercise for me to sit on that board, and I guess it was reinforced on me how important it is. But Blaine Higgs has announced a change in how we recruit doctors and basically how doctors enter into the system. And he made a detailed report on that today, which I think is available to the public. So there has to be changes in the recruitment. There has to be changes on how we recruit nurses and testing nurses and so on and so forth. So it's multi-layered, if you will. But it takes a community to support anything, and we have a community here that truly does support the hospital. And looking around the province of Brunswick and other locations, you could argue, why us? I mean, the decision for the operating room, that could be corrected with a real push from Fredericton, and Fredericton to sit down with the chairman of the board of Horizon. I mean, we deserve an operating room here. No question about it. And it's one of the essentials of a hospital. I'm talking about a green plan. Imagine the number of people that are going now to the regional hospital for services that could be conducted right here in Charlotte County by a quality staff nursing. Makes no sense. So I think small is good, small is better, and I fully support the hospital.
Thanks, Greg. So Joyce, I'm going to say it again, it's a long one. So Joyce, do you support the Charlotte County Hospital as a full-service hospital? And the second part of that is, how will you address the OR crisis and physician recruitment?
Okay, I'm proud to answer that. I remember the day when Charlotte County had a full children's ward, a maternity suite, the ER, and all the services that we've lost over the years. I remember when we had 3 full floors of patient care, and I am sad that we don't have that. I absolutely am in agreement with it being returned to a full-service hospital and preserving and even increasing the OR capacity like it used to be. And as Greg alluded to, the environmental impact, but there's also a cost to taking services out. It doesn't always save money to centralize, because often what we're doing is having to send patients by ambulance to St. John and back for treatments, so we're paying paramedics and ambulances and gas when we could be providing those services like we used to right in our hospital. So there's not always a cost savings to centralizing everything. I am fully in support of restoring services to Charlotte County Hospital as a full functioning. As far as bringing doctors, we have also pledged to work with the NB Medical Society, who has asked us to get rid of the medical billing number system, and we have pledged to do that and to work with them to find their best ways to bring doctors here.
Perfect, thank you. So over to you, John. John, do you support the Charlotte County Hospital as a full-service hospital? And how would you address the OR crisis and physician recruitment?
Well, thank you very much for this very important question. I absolutely 100% support the Charlotte County Hospital in every way possible. The situation with the OR is only at 80% capacity for the simple reason that there's a lack of anesthesiologists. And we have had concentrated efforts trying to attract people to come to this area. But the truth of the matter is that healthcare isn't being conducted today as it was maybe 50 years ago. And we need to ensure that primary care, which is the utmost need for the residents of this area, continues to be available and continues to be something that government pushes. And we've seen that with our government. We're continuing to have strategic initiatives to recruit doctors, and we're going to continue to do that and recruit more doctors, not only this area, but throughout the province. And we need to continue to work with all the staff involved. And I've met personally with everyone from the CAO of Horizon all the way down to the chief officers here at the Charlotte County Hospital. And I'm proud to say that the hospital is growing. It's better than it has been in the last few years. We've got a third floor clinic now. We have an electronic medical records system. We have nurse practitioners now working there. This is a wellness center that the community's been looking to have for over a decade, and I'm proud to say that it happened under my watch, and I'm proud to say that I'm going to continue to work with all those that are involved with the medical center, or the wellness center. We also have an added shift at the dialysis unit, so people do not have to travel back and forth to St. John. We need to continue to make sure that those services that are there continue to stay there and are enhanced and are going to be there for the people of this area, because it's a facility for St. Stephen and the St. Stephen region, and it's important to all of us.
Thank you, John. So Donna, the same question again is, do you support the Charlotte County Hospital as a full-service hospital, and how would you address the OR crisis and physician recruitment?
Thank you. Yes, I do support the Charlotte County Hospital, but the Green Party also would support adding new community health centers to many regions, staffed by collaborative family health care teams, including mental health professionals and nurse practitioners. In order to decrease wait times, the Green government really supports this. Eliminate the government-imposed caps on Medicare billing numbers so that more doctors can open up practices in regions where there is a demand for their services. So if there's a demand for OR services in Charlotte County, then a surgeon can come to Charlotte County and set up practice. Another big thing that the Green Party would do is that we would create 40 new nurse practitioner positions around the province and allow nurse practitioners and pharmacists to bill Medicare for health services to reduce wait times for primary health care. What we find is healthcare is not a business, and the public health system should not be run like one or by one. Instead, it should be organized to meet citizens' health needs effectively, with decisions about providing care made at the community level. Regarding Charlotte County Hospital and all hospitals in this province, we want to give hospitals the authority to make decisions about how to best provide timely access and care to patients, and enable all staff to collaborate and to implement them. Thank you.
Thank you. So on to the next question. This one will be Joyce, John, Donna, and then Greg. Keeping in mind, as we said, it is very warm in here, just so you know. There is an ending in sight for this. It will be 9 o'clock sharp. I'm keeping an eye on the timing of it. But this is going so well, and thank you guys for your open and honesty. I really enjoy this. So the question that we're going to deal with here is deals with education. And I must say the penmanship of the question is so well done, it must be from an educator. So I'm going to start with you, Joyce, and the question is, what is your opinion of the province of New Brunswick hiring non-teachers, and by that they mean non-education degrees but are bilingual, to teach our children? So therein lies the, sorry guys. So Joyce, what is your opinion of the province of New Brunswick hiring non-teachers, non-education degree but are bilingual, to teach our children?
It's a loaded question, isn't it? We do need people staffing our questions because we can't, our classrooms, because we can't have one teacher managing 60 children. But when you have let a system deteriorate to the point where you aren't having the qualified teachers in your province and you've set up the system to fail, I don't know what other choice they have to teach the bodies in the classroom. Unfortunately, do I agree with it? No. But it's a system, it's a failure that's been many, many years in the making, and it certainly won't be fixed overnight either. But we do need to support our professionals, and we have long since advocated, since the beginning of the party, to let the teachers and the professional associations guide the decisions about where the teachers come from, how many we need, and that sort of thing. We need to take the politics out of our education. It's not working.
So John, what is your opinion of non-teachers teaching our children?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. As a former educator myself, I applaud everyone who takes the time to work with children from K to 12 and even up into the college and universities. When it comes to specialists, when it comes to particular disciplines, we have to rely upon the professionals at the district level and the administration levels at each school board. And with this situation, it is quite unfortunate, I will say, as a teacher. You want to have the best teacher possible for your kids. As a father and as a teacher myself, that's how I feel. I do know, if you look at other disciplines, I'm a teacher, but you would not want to see me teaching automotive. So when you have the district levels and the administrators making decisions, it's up to them, and we have to give them the reins to make the decisions on who is going to be the best person possible at this given time. And where we're at right now, and I've spoken to both teachers and parents and administrators on this issue and many other issues, we need to ensure that we still have the service available for the children. There has been a demand to bring French immersion back to grade 1, and there has been a big, it's been received well in this community, and there's a lot of people looking to put their kids in the French immersion. So there's an increased demand, and with that increased demand, it puts added pressure, of course, on the district and the administrators to make decisions on who they should hire. And as Joyce said, I agree, we need to put that in the hands of the administration, use their best practices as professionals to determine who's the best person for the job. But I do agree that absolutely, when possible, we should be making sure that everybody is certified, and if they're not, they should be going for certification as soon as possible.
Thank you. Donna, same opinion, same question is, what is your opinion of non-teachers teaching our children?
My opinion of non-teachers teaching children is wrong. I think if we don't have the resources in our schools, then, like other programs that are funded publicly by the government, then we might have to have cuts. All children need early access to public education, and teachers must have the resources they need to do their jobs well, and schools must be integrated and responsive to not only the students and the parents, but to communities. I believe that restoring the system of decentralizing the school districts will go a long way. We need school districts where decisions are made on resource allocations and policy implementation, not what the theme of the day is, and 2 weeks before school comes, realize that we don't have enough resources to do what we intended to do, so we'll pull. We all know it's a fact that teachers aren't always screened properly for teaching, and sometimes teachers will move community to community, province to province. I'm not saying that that's the case, but I think that we run a risk when we bring people into our school system who don't have teaching degrees, that are in charge of our children, and we trust them to give them the best possible education. Again, teachers must have the resources, and schools and districts must have the resources that they need, and that's a public responsibility that I would take very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So Greg, on to you. What is your opinion of the province hiring non-teachers to teach children?
Thanks, Mike. I was a teacher as well. I lasted 4 years in teaching, then I had to get an easier job. So. But a lot of things have changed since then. But the question I'd have, is that a cost-saving measure or lack of planning by the Department of Education in terms of how we recruit young people to become teachers? Because I know now, looking out over the next few years, there's going to be an absolute shortage of teachers. So, that would be the question. But I don't think the bureaucrats in Fredericton are noted for thinking things through completely. These are the same folks that implement programs and educational programs that have been complete failures in other jurisdictions and expect teachers to teach it. So they don't have a particularly good track record in Fredericton. My opinion, the Department of Education in Fredericton needs a huge shake-up. The teachers will do the jobs, let them do the job. I fully support hiring qualified teachers. Qualified teachers. Most of us that have taught, we've taken the expense and sacrifice to get an education, to get an education degree and teach. And I think that should be honored by the province of New Brunswick. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. On to a new question. John, you will start, and down the road we go. So this question, I think they're asking for some meat. So it's going to be, it's an important question. It's one that comes up each time that there is an election. So in the provincial level. So I'm looking forward to hearing some response on this one. So the question reads, how does your government plan to give municipalities more power, and in what areas? So the question again is, how does your government plan to give municipalities more power, and in what areas?
Well, thank you very much, Mike. That's a great question. As a former deputy mayor here and councillor in St. Stephen, I see the need to continue to be a strong advocate for the people in the municipal forum. And I'm proud to say that our government took the task of reforming the Municipalities Act, which was over 30 years old and was in desperate need of getting some changes. And within that reform, we have set out to ensure that we work with municipalities on whether it be planning, whether it be working on different types of strategies that can help economics, that can help people working on accessibility for different services. And as we move forward, we need to continue to have that dialogue open and showcase what we're doing and what we're available to do through the Department of Environment in the local government. And the only way that any government, regardless of party, the only way they can move forward is by listening to the elected officials and to the administrators in the different areas throughout the province. And being a former member of the United Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, they are a great group of people, and I know that there's members that are on that board from St. Stephen as well as St. Andrews, and I'm sure McAdams played a role in that many times. There are people who have been working in municipal government for decades upon decades upon decades, and they know what works well and they know what doesn't work well. And listening to these people and collaborating with these leaders is essential in making sure that each community, regardless of what size it is, can get the services that they need and can have a good listening ear by any government of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Donna, how does your government plan to give municipalities more power, and in what areas?
Thanks, Mike. The Green government and I actually believe that good governance begins at the local level. Urban and rural communities need more autonomy to shape their futures, and citizens need opportunities to participate in local decision-making directly. A Green government would amend the Municipalities Act and Community Planning Act to increase the authority of municipalities. The Green government would also place the current system of local service districts with local elected governments designed by citizens to best meet their needs. We also would require the Regional Service Commission to carry out planning on a watershed basis, respecting the ecological features of the region, and take on the responsibility for public transportation planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Same question to you, Greg. How does your government plan to give municipalities more power, and in what areas?
Thanks, Mike. During my time in office, I totally respected the local towns and villages. And if they wanted something, I acted on it. I mean, today is one of the turning moments in this whole Ferry issue that, according to the Telegraph Journal that I spoke to this morning, that the mayor and council of Campobello have written a letter to the province of Brunswick requesting full-time ferry. So that kind of changes the water and everything in terms of local governments, you know, having the ability to make up their own mind. Not to say that's going to happen, but makes a lot of other decision making a lot easier. But I believe in taking some of that decision making out of Fredericton and putting it right straight into the hands of the municipalities. They're professionally administrated, they've got a great staff, they're elected by the public, they have the confidence of the public, and some changes obviously to the Municipal Borrowing Act, which would speed things up for municipalities so they don't have to go through the kind of hoops that they do today in Fredericton. Again, very bureaucratic system that I think hurts the development of our towns and cities and villages. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Joyce, how does your government plan to give municipalities more power, and in what areas?
We are absolutely committed to returning more autonomy to the towns like they've been asking for. Having sat on the board of the Regional Service Commission, I do meet with many mayors, and they say the amendments that were introduced in this past 4-year term certainly didn't meet all of their requests, and we are committed to returning taxation authority to the municipalities. We're the only province that has it. Goes through Fredericton, through our provincial government, and definitely did not lead to good things last year with the property tax assessment fiasco. So we are absolutely committed to working with regional service commissions and doing a true reform, thorough reform, including taxation authority for the towns. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Question 5, starting with you, Donna, moving down to Greg, Joyce, and then John. So this question is, why do we need mandated bilingual employees in predominantly unilingual areas? The example that they're using is ambulance services, at the risk of not being able to find a sufficient number to fill the needs. So the question to you, Donna, first is, why do we need mandated bilingual employees in predominantly unilingual areas?
Well, I'm not sure that we do, Mike. The language issue in the province of New Brunswick was established so that the Acadian and the Anglo communities could be preserved, and we have both of those in this province, and that's still, you know, it's still important that we preserve both the Acadian and the Anglo communities. When it comes to employment and public services, yes, the province of New Brunswick is mandated to provide public services to folks in language of their choice. However, when you're preserving the Anglo communities and you're preserving the French communities, these issues need to be looked at really closely. We have a lot of work to do on becoming a totally bilingual province with everyone's views the same, whether we should be bilingual in St. Croix or whether we should be bilingual in Caracat or Tracadie-Shiloh. I think that that's work that the government needs to do. Where I've run into some problems with the bilingualism is in the nonprofit sector. I've seen checks have to be written for translation services when somebody could probably translate for each other, or we could use some other devices. Instead, it's actually taking from the groups who can afford it the least, this translation. I do believe in dual language for this province. We are a bilingual province. It is our heritage, and we need to preserve that. But as far as having bilingual positions that are employed by the government in distinct communities, I feel that we could get by with the unilanguage in certain communities of this province. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Greg, the question to you is, why do we need mandated bilingual employees in predominantly unilingual areas?
Well, you take a look at the ambulance service here in New Brunswick, that's the classic example of overkill on language. I mean, that is totally ridiculous. I mean, we've had ambulances, as others will tell you, that have not actually gone out of the garage. They've never gone on a service call to help New Brunswickers. We've had people that have basically died because they did not have enough French or English driving the bus. So it plays both ways. Like up north, it's an English problem. Down here, it's a French problem. Blaine Higgs' solution to this is hire on ability and talent and train on language. Most people are capable of that. But to completely take a service from the province, from the people of the province of New Brunswick is ridiculous in turning this language issue all upside down. And one of the cabinet ministers in Fredericton, who is the Minister of Education, challenged this in the courts because his children are being picked up, get this, by an English driver. Now that is ludicrous. But the signal coming out of Fredericton about a lot of politicians is not helping it. That's got to change.
Thank you, Greg. Joyce, the question to you is, why do we need mandated bilingual employees in predominantly unilingual
The
areas?
short answer is we absolutely don't. The Official Languages Act does require us to provide service in the language of choice, but it does not mandate hiring ratios, and it does not say that we cannot use technology. We can jump into the 21st century like the rest of the world does. I have a niece in the Greater Toronto area, and she uses technology to help serve 170 languages a day, and yet we refuse to use it for 2. We would rather have ambulances empty and people going west for jobs than give them a job here because they're not bilingual. I'm proud, absolutely proud, to be with a party that has been addressing this issue since the official languages review was done back under the all-word government in 2012 behind closed doors with limited citizen input. We are calling for absolute common sense to be used and to jump into the 21st century. Nobody should be denied a job. And I will add that the goal of the Official Languages Act, in its inception, explicitly stated the goal was not to make every citizen bilingual. Nobody should feel ashamed because they haven't had the opportunity or the ability to learn a second language. Hiring first for skill, training for language with a timeline is unacceptable. An overworked, overstressed paramedic does not need to have a timeline hanging over his or her head to learn a skill that he doesn't have to learn to do his job. Do you want the person who can sink the IV on the first try, or the one who can blow 5 veins but apologize to you in 2 languages for doing so?
Thank you, Joyce. John, the question to you is, why do we need mandated bilingual employees in predominantly unilingual areas?
Well, thank you very much for that question, Mike. Bilingualism has been a heated discussion for New Brunswick long before I was even able to vote, probably long before I was even able to walk. And all parties have had many different viewpoints on it. And as the member for St. Croix, I've always committed to listen to all the viewpoints of each party, of each individual, and certainly my own party, and certainly the people who are making decisions in cabinet. And yes, there is a constitutional obligation to adhere to particular policies, but I do agree that there does need to be a common sense approach, and we need to continue to work with, whether it be the paramedics union or any group of citizens that are being employed by the province of New Brunswick, to ensure that we find creative ways to get the best service for New Brunswickers, bottom line. And you know, I will intend to continue that effort going forward as your MLA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Next question. This one is a long question. I'm going to read it long once, and then I've shortened it down a little bit so we can just be reminded of where we're at on it. So the question, Greg, we start with you on this one, is double taxation. Apartment building owners typically pay 2 times property taxes. That cost gets passed on to the apartment dwellers, many of which are lower income. So the question to you, Greg, is what is your position on double taxation for apartment building owners?
The position that Blaine Higgs has taken on this, and it is a big issue, Mike, I'm aware of it, is that he'll phase that out over 4 years. It's bringing in X number of dollars of revenue. He said we can't afford to do it in 1 year, but we could over 4 years. But it discourages investment. But it just shows you how desperate the government is for money. Because you think about it, we've got a declining population in New Brunswick. The death rate has surpassed the growth rate. It's an aging population. There's fewer and fewer of us that are actually contributing to the tax base. And it's not sustainable. Like, we've got taxes so high here in New Brunswick now, which feeds into that question, Mike, that it's forcing our young people to leave for work. That's one of the reasons we've got a declining population base, and we can't attract new people to come in. So it hurts everyone in business. You could go to some of the manufacturers here, including the Doms. They can't hire workers. Why? The young people that want to work moved away. We have to create a climate where they want to come to New Brunswick. And they're not going to come to New Brunswick with high taxes, but this is one of the things that can change that. Investors will invest, houses will be built, carpenters will go to work, plumbers will go to work, electricians will go to work. So it speeds the economy, it creates the jobs and activity that we need to make a prosperous New Brunswick. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. To Joyce.
Once again, I am proud, I remember the question. Once again, I am proud to be with a party that was actually calling for the immediate elimination of the double tax 2 years ago. We weren't waiting till an election campaign to promise it. We saw the sense in it before, and we have absolutely called for an elimination of it. And we can do it immediately if we stop handing out cash to multi-billion-dollar corporations. It's what are your priorities?
John, over to you.
Thank you very much. I don't disagree that we need to do everything we can to instill investment into our communities throughout New Brunswick, and our government has done that with the Small Business Investment Tax Credit. And we have to take a look at the double taxation. Again, I don't disagree that it would be nice to have that eliminated immediately, but we need to ask ourselves, that's a huge, huge price tag. If that's going to be eliminated immediately, what are we giving up for it, or what are we going to tax in place of it? There needs to be give and take. We can't have our cake and eat it too on this matter. And furthermore, as far as I hear the argument all the time when I have this discussion with people that, you know, we're downloading the cost of our rent onto our dwellers. And I'd like to ask people that if they were to get the double taxation removed, would that mean that they're going to give people who are in the same situations a break on their taxes? I would like to hope that's the case, but I'm sure in a lot of cases it's not. We need to ensure that we help those who need the most help, those who are vulnerable, and if we can make sure that we can give them a hand up, then we'll be in a better place for everybody. We're going to continue to ensure that people have more opportunities, and the more money that the people who are in small income brackets have, that money is going to be put right back into local communities. And I've seen it myself. People that are on minimum wage, if they get a minimum wage increase, which Blaine Higgs has been against time and time again, the extra money that they have at the end of the week isn't ridiculous. That money is being spent in the local economies. And the more money that they have in their pockets, the more money that they're going to spend. And we need to ensure those who need help the most continue to get that help. And if we're in a position in the future, I definitely agree, we do need to get rid of the double taxation when we're in that position. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna, same question.
This kind of falls under the living within our ecological and financial means, and it's a very important part of the Green Party platform. Financing quality public services. We do not support simplistic policies that cut public services to reduce budget deficits while continuing with unjust taxation policies. While past governments only paid attention to the financial accounts, we also consider the ecological balance sheet. We are not getting ahead if we degrade our water, air, and land and endanger wildlife to reduce fiscal deficit. A Green government would institute a public inquiry into the sustainability of the province's financial and ecological deficits. Its mandate would be to recommend a strategy to reduce our long-term financial and ecological debt. It would examine the fairness of our tax system, lost revenue from preferential tax treatment of capital gains, large inheritances, and offshore accounts, and a means to phase out the double tax on non-owner occupied properties. It would also analyze the impacts of non-renewable and renewable resource tax policies on the overexploitation of limited ecological resources. And in the case of rental units, where we do know that landlords are taxed extremely high to the point that they try to get rid of those buildings sometimes as soon as they get them because they realize that they're taxed about 66%. So if we took the double tax off those properties, we would put a process in place so that that tax savings or that savings to the landlord would somewhat be turned over to some of the renters, so that we would not only have landlords saving tax dollars, but they would actually put those savings into the people who help them by renting their units. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, starting with you, Joyce, down to John, Donna, and then Greg. So the question is very specific. Joyce, how will you improve the lives of seniors on limited incomes?
This is a really multifaceted question. It covers everything from the accessibility of home care to the special care home per diems. Much of what the seniors get is federally controlled, but what I can promise you is that we are committed to helping seniors age in place as long as possible and with the best care possible. We believe that they should not be penalized for having worked hard their whole life and then needing some help in their senior years. There should not be any disparity between the care someone receives who has worked and have a pension, and someone who maybe wasn't able to build that same size pension due to circumstances. There should be no disparity in their care when they get to be a senior. And so I would absolutely fight tooth and nail to ensure our seniors are well taken care of in this province.
Thank you, Joyce. Down to you, John. How will you improve the lives of seniors on limited incomes?
Another great question. So, as we all know, we have an aging population here in New Brunswick, and we need to continue to respect people who are in their senior years and their golden years. And I myself, with my grandmother and a lot of relatives, I see every day what they have to go through. And we need to continue to ensure that there's programs in place to help them out, whether that's with the Home First strategy, whether that's investments in nursing homes, whether that's investments to ensure that there's things that seniors can be taken advantage of every single day. And we need to make sure that if they want to stay in their homes, that they should be able to stay in their homes. But there's always becomes a time when they may need to go to another facility, and we need to ensure that those facilities and the people that work in those facilities have the security to sustain themselves and to sustain the service for the people in that area. And I'm proud to say that we've made those investments here at whether it be Wackelhegan Manor, whether it be the Macadam, or Campbell Lodge rather, whether it be Lynn Court, whether that be past Macquarie Lodge, and I've met with a lot of every one of these administrators in our regional nursing homes, and I've also helped different places out like Lonasair Hall, which is sort of an in-between facility. And we want to make sure that we honor and respect people who are in their golden years and continue to have services available so that they can take advantage of them and live a life of dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So, Donna, how will you improve the lives of seniors on limited incomes?
Thanks, Mike. A growing number of citizens require various levels of public assistance to live in dignity. Most are elderly. We need a flexible, multifaceted system that matches the need with the appropriate type of care and is not profit-driven. We also need a reliable professional workforce for care. A green government would increase the training requirements and salaries for in-home care workers and improve standards for those staff. We also would look at exploring alternative housing models for rural seniors who find it difficult to remain in their family home but do not require nursing home assistance. We also would consider enabling homeowners on fixed incomes to remain in their homes by delinking property assessments from the real estate market. Assessments would increase based on actual improvements made or when the house is sold. We're also looking at ensuring that existing nursing homes, the not-for-profit nursing homes that we still have the right of first refusal to provide additional nursing home beds in the community they serve. In addition, a green government would establish a public inquiry into the adequacy of retirement income for all New Brunswickers and reverse the changes made to the pensions of retired teachers, nurses, and public servants. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So, Greg, how will you improve the lives of seniors on limited incomes?
I'm really interested in this question, Mike. You probably don't believe this, but I'm a senior. So, listen, you don't do it by taxing seniors to death. This liberal tax grab, the carbon tax, will hurt seniors that are trying to stay in their home, pay their heating bills, drive to town for groceries. That'll impact every senior. That can stop. The liberals can say no to it, but they won't. On top of that, we've got to pay our home care workers a wage that they deserve, because the key to the future is paying these people what they're worth so we recruit more of those people to help our seniors in their homes. Not every senior has to go to a nursing home. Most seniors don't want to go to a nursing home, but if we provide them with that kind of care, it'll make a tremendous difference in their quality of life. So just fundamental, stop taxation, pay healthcare workers what they worth, a working wage, that's a decent wage they can live on, and we'll encourage people to do that. And there's a tremendous number of volunteers right here in St. Stephen that deliver meals every day and work every day. hidden behind the scenes, get very little credit for the great work that they do. So we can do more, and we will do more if we get elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. So now, next question, John, Donna, Greg, and then Joyce. So, John, to you, the question is, do you believe we need an active immigration program?
I do believe we need an active immigration program. We have an aging demographic, as I mentioned earlier, here in New Brunswick, and you know, we need more people to continue to add to the services that we rely upon in New Brunswick. And whether that be people from other provinces or other parts of the world, we need to continue to work with the federal government to ensure that there are opportunities available not only for the existing New Brunswickers that are here, but to work with other people so that we have a growing population. The more population grows, the more demand there is on services, the more jobs there are, the more people get paid. So I think we need to continue to work with the federal government in ensuring that there's a strategic program in place so that people can continue to come to New Brunswick and call this beautiful province, the best province in the country, home. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Donna, do you believe we need an active immigration program?
Thanks, Mike. Yes, I do believe that New Brunswick needs to continue to diversify. We need population growth. We need people to come and bring their businesses here. We have folks here who want to work but may not be in a position to create their own business. New Brunswick has one thing going for it. It has very economically feasible land. New Brunswick is a place that if somebody is looking to set up shop, be it from somewhere else in the province or somewhere else on the globe, we have land, and we should be putting that land to good use to sustain ourselves economically, to possibly grow our own food. And we need the diversity. We need people to come to New Brunswick, to relocate here with their great minds, their great resources, and help us grow this economy. Diversity is the key to the local economy. We can't put all of our eggs in one basket. We know that on many fronts. So when it comes to how we're going to cohabitate in this province and how we're going to pull off employment endeavors into the future, we absolutely need the help from outside citizens, and we would like to engage those people and come and help us make New Brunswick the best province ever. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Greg, do you believe we need an active immigration program?
No, we do need it, and I mean, one of the numbers that I talked about this evening, and it's a really scary number, is the death rate surpassing the birth rate. I mean, we're a declining population base. I mean, this is theoretical, but you can point to when our population base should be down to zero. I mean, that's outrageous, but we need immigration. John Williamson, former Member of Parliament, Kieran Ludwig, Member of Parliament, will tell you that we've had like an alphabet soup of immigration programs in Canada. None of them have really ever worked successfully in New Brunswick, even though they fine-tuned them. And one of the things I touched on earlier, Mike, is the fact that people will gravitate to lower taxation districts. Like people get into Canada, they will go to places where they can earn more and keep more in their pockets to raise their families. We're increasingly becoming a very expensive province to live in. The best province to live in, but an expensive province to live in. And those manufacturing jobs and companies that can produce you know, goods and services, if you will not move to New Brunswick. They can't find labor. We need immigration, but the key is skilled immigration. Skilled immigration. Thank you.
Joyce, same question?
Absolutely, we need to maintain and even expand our immigration policy. I have some very dear friends who are immigrants from another country, and the hoops they have to jump through to get here as an immigrant are enormous. And in New Brunswick, it's further complicated because our provincial immigration strategy wants to maintain our linguistic percentages. So when I heard of a case of a family that their family was ready to come, they have to have so much money in the bank and so much of it registered with the Government of Canada and prove that they're going to be able to come here to work, and the hoops they had to go through, but they couldn't come to New Brunswick because we were kind of at our quota for our ratios for that year. Thankfully, they're able to come now, and so absolutely we need to welcome our immigrants with open arms and even expand that as our birth rates decline, absolutely.
Thank you, Joyce. It's 8:29. There are many, many more questions to go. We're trying to get through as many of them as we can because these are phenomenal. These are hot questions, and you guys are doing a great job under the heat. So, next question, starting with you, Donna, Greg, Joyce, and then John. So the question reads: according to Statistics Canada, Charlotte County has the highest level of child poverty in the whole of Canada. If elected, what practical steps will your party take in the first year of its mandate to address this issue?
Thank you, Mike. I have my own opinions on a lot of that, but I am going to stick to the Green Platform. We absolutely want to raise minimum wage by $1 a year to $15.25 an hour, then index it to inflation so that working people do not have to use food banks to make ends meet. And I must mention that many, many low-income working families do in fact have children. We also would like to pilot a basic income guarantee program in 3 regions for 3 years with the objective of phasing it in over time. Immediately, we would increase social assistance rates for individuals by 13% for single people and 5% for other recipients, and then index those rates to inflation. We'd also eliminate the rules that prevent people on social assistance from improving their living conditions, such as the prohibition on sharing accommodations, the income assistance clawbacks, and the extreme criteria used to determine disability. We'd also eliminate the annual premiums for the New Brunswick Drug Plan for individuals earning less than $25,000 a year and families of 4 who are earning less than $40,000 a year. We'd also support the implementation of a national pharmacare program. We'd like to improve access to safe, affordable housing by implementing housing first strategies in the major cities of the province and then providing more rent supplements to individuals rather than to the landlords. We'd like to amend the Residential Tenancy Act to better protect the tenants, and we'd like to increase funding for community organizations and social enterprises that provide direct support to people in poverty. We'd also expand the scope and budget of legal aid services to be comparable with what's offered in Nova Scotia and PEI, and another big barrier to getting social assistance is the stack of paperwork. So I think that sharing the wealth and extending a hand and the platform put forth by the Green Party will go a long way to helping child poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So Greg, surmising, what will your party do in the first year to address child poverty?
Well, you're saying first year, but this is one of those things where it has to be an incremental approach to really solve it. Like there's no magic wand that's going to solve this overnight. Because child poverty usually mean parents in poverty. I'd say always. Maybe there's an exception to the rule. But one of the things that I've always favored, and I think Blaine Higgs has been talking about, not to say it's going to be implemented that would resolve this, because you can't feed a family on welfare. You can do basically nothing on welfare. And so we discourage welfare folks that want to get ahead from going into the workforce because they go out and work and everything's subtracted dollar from the paycheck. You know, we have to encourage those folks to go to work, give them a break in terms of that dollar-to-dollar clawback, encourage them to go to work every day. They get used to having more money, feeding their children, etc. You know, that's just one small thing we can do. And then education. You know, there's a couple of things that drive child poverty. Sometimes the lack of education and work skills, and often mental incapacity. And so when people like Donna are running a food bank, I'm telling you, you're like a little angel from heaven to a lot of families in this area. I'm telling you that right now. Because there's nothing worse than seeing a kid hungry.
Thank you, Greg. Joyce, What will your party do in its first year to address child poverty?
Child poverty, as Greg said, is directly linked to family poverty, and that's directly related to the economy of the region. We are one of the highest taxed regions for policing, which is directly related to a lot of the social issues that we have as well. And it's not an easy fix. We are absolutely committed to growing the economy, to supporting our food banks, to making sure that when our children go to schools and the backpack program is in place, they're not underfunded and having to rely on solely on donations from community members to ensure that our children have meals for the weekends when they're in a situation where there isn't enough food at home and the food bank's capacities are at overcapacity. So we do recognize that there's not an easy fix, but we do believe that giving families the tools they need to grow in a vibrant economy will go a good deal toward eliminating that.
John, same question to you.
Thank you very much. The cord. Ending generational poverty is essential to eliminating childhood poverty and poverty of any matter. We have to ensure that children are able to access and get the skills and education necessary in order to uplift them and put them in a better position in life. And we've done that with a tuition access bursary. For a child who's living in conditions that none of us would ever even want to imagine, their parents or parent, most of the time, one parent, you know, they never ever have any opportunities to go to school. So we've given this tuition access bursary for those who do not have the means to go to school, for them to go to school. And we are also committed to raising the minimum wage to $14 year after year by 2022. And we've implemented the Youth Employment Fund. The Youth Employment Fund, for those of you who don't know, is something we implemented a few years ago, where it allows somebody who's a recent graduate from a college or university, or someone who's looking to go into a particular field, to go into any type of working environment where they can get those skills without it being a burden to the employer. Because a lot of times you hear the employers say, well, we need more skilled workers. But you know, you also hear from the kids that are coming out of the school system, well, we love to go and work at these places, but we just don't have the experience you're looking for. So this is a gap that we can put together and solve by the Youth Employment Fund, by giving them the experience. It's both helping the student and helping the employer. And I must say, accessibility and transportation is a big part of that. I know I worked with Donna on Charlotte Dial Ride, and there's the rural links. We need to continue to find measures that are going to help people get to and from work in a safe, reliable way. And housing. I am so proud to see that we are able to work with the Fundy Region Transition House for second stage funding. It is a gem for this community and a gem for this province. We need to continue to make it available to all mothers for the future.
Thank you, John. So the next question feeds perfectly into the last one, so you'll be able to even expand a bit more onto what you had just mentioned. So it's going to go Greg, Joyce, John, and then Donna. So the question is, what is your government going to do to counteract the negative job factors we currently have in this province? So the question again is, what is your government going to do to counteract the negative job factors we currently have in this province? Greg?
Mike, I want to know what when you're talking about job factors.
Issues, negative work available, negative lack of positions available, perhaps for qualified workers. So when the question, the way I read it, is the negative situation of perhaps even lack of quality work for people here in the province of Brunswick.
Yeah, we did kind of touch on that a little bit. But yeah, we've got a huge problem in Charlotte County in attracting skilled labor for some of our businesses. I talked about Gadongs, but I was in to see Nick had his cabinet making business. He could increase his business 30% if he could find qualified workers that would stay and work. The same with the Gadongs. It's a huge problem. You know, how do we get into a situation like this? I mean, you could actually say government created it. But to change it, as I said in the last question, it's incremental change that will make the difference. Where people value work, they understand how important it is to work. instilling the work ethic, if you will. So a lot of that we can change simply by putting our nose to the grindstone, being dedicated to what we're doing, and finding a way to educate people in terms of a career. I mean, some people enter a job and they think, well, this is it. I mean, I'm going to work for minimum wage the rest of my life. Well, no, you're not. Most people, even when they enter Tim Hortons, they're working at minimum wage. If they're good workers, at the end of a month or two, they recognize that, they get a pay raise. So we have to encourage people to enter the workforce, but there's a number of impediments out there for them. There's no question about it. Like, we have to break that cycle of just working long enough for unemployment. And if unemployment runs out, I can go on welfare. I mean, we've got to break that psyche. We have to break that spell. I don't know how we do it. But at the end of the day, every one of us are paying for that in our taxes. I mean, it's a huge expense to government. So we got to find a way to do it, and the word that John always uses is collaboratively. So we got to work together to solve it, and that's a partnership with industry and government.
Thank you, Greg. So Joyce, what are you going to do to counteract the negative job factors we are facing at this time?
Well, being unsure as to the exact intent, I don't know if they're talking about the unemployment statistics. But I do believe my party's plan for growing a vibrant economy would open up more jobs. If you have a small or medium-sized business owner here in this region who is at that point where they need to expand, but they don't quite have enough guarantee that they can hire somebody full-time, it's a precarious position to be in. So if we eliminate the small and medium-sized business tax as we're proposing, those people can have the confidence to reinvest that money into their business and provide more opportunities. It also leads back to the fact that we have open positions that are affecting our stats, like in our paramedic system, and we simply refuse to fill them with the professionals that are waiting to do the jobs, and that does affect our stats for casual and part-time employment because that's what they're registered as. So it's a multi-pronged question, and that a strong and vibrant economy where every business owner in the province has a level playing field to compete and be successful is key to restoring the job situation in this region.
Thank you, Joyce. John, question to you is, how are you going to counteract the negative job factors that we face in New Brunswick today?
Thank you very much, Mike. It's all about bridging the gap, isn't it? There are so many businesses out there that I've talked to locally and provincially who want people to work. They need people to work. We've seen it many, many times. Places here locally, businesses that have had to go into the States or have had to go other places because they couldn't find workers. It's a problem. But so is, at the same time, simultaneously, a problem where people cannot find work. So what's the solution? You have people that are looking for work and you have employers looking for workers. Should be a simple task, just putting the workers in to work. But the solution is skills, is education. Education is how we bridge that gap. And our government is committed fully to ensuring that people can continue to get these skills. Again, with the Youth Employment Fund, it's an opportunity for people that need experience to get the experience. With the tuition access bursary, it's an opportunity for those who thought, geez, I've never been in a situation where I can afford anything, let alone tuition to go to school. Now they can get that. Those who may not be even in that position are now in a position through our government that will completely eliminate the interest on student loans starting January 1st. We also need to look at capital. There's businesses that are always looking to expand and find creative ways to do better, and with the small business investor tax credit, they can do that. Getting access to capital is essential in order to grow. And we've reduced the small business tax by 44%, and we'll continue to do that as we move forward. But you need to start somewhere. And I as an educator, I used to tell kids that said, you know, I've got a dream, I want to do this when I get old someday. And I don't think we should ever eliminate anybody's dreams, especially children. But we need to also let them know that there's going to be a transition in life. Sometimes you have to start on the factory floor before you become the manager or the CAO. And I think that culture needs to change, not just at the educational level, not just at the political government level, but in the family home as well. Thank you.
Donna, same question to you.
Strong local economies depend on three things: diversity of locally owned small businesses, cooperatives, and social enterprises. The second, reducing imports of goods and services by producing and buying more locally. And 3, access to essential public infrastructure for communications and transportation. A 10% shift in consumer spending on imported goods and services to New Brunswick-made products would create 14,000 jobs and add $1.8 billion to the provincial economy annually. The Green government would consolidate various economic development agencies into a Department of Community and Rural Development. We would develop an import substitution strategy that would increase the local production of essential goods and services. We would require government departments, hospitals, schools, and community colleges to increase their purchase of local goods and services by at least 10% and encourage municipalities and universities to do the same. We would reduce loan guarantees and payroll rebates by half and redirect them from supporting large profitable corporations to local enterprises participating in the import substitution strategy. We'd develop a bioeconomy strategy, bioenergy, bioplastics, and biochemicals that would sustainably utilize renewable resources from our forests, farms, and fisheries, including processing their wastes to replace products made with oil and petrochemicals. We also would implement the recommendation of the Cooperative Enterprise Council in their 2014 report called Cooperatives and Social Enterprises in New Brunswick to increase the proportion of the economy that is managed for social goals as well as profit. We'd also implement a local food strategy with targets for increasing the ratio of local food production to food imports and for increasing organic production. We would simplify the establishment of community economic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. We're going to squeeze one more question in. So this is our final one, and then we're going to go into the 3-minute wrap-up on that one. This time flies by, and you guys have been on the hot seat for some time. So final question, we're going to go Joyce, John, Donna, and then end with Greg. And this question has to do with balancing the budget. So you each have 2 minutes to answer the following. The question is, how will your party balance the budget and reduce the provincial debt without cutting services?
Living within your means, needs before wants, are all key to that. We've also put a plan in 2014, our estimates for merging the 2 health authorities into 1 health authority that can more efficiently serve both hospital systems. It was at that time estimated to save $60 million per year, that one change alone. We hand out over $300 million a year in corporate subsidies and cash handouts, also called forgivable loans. So if we can even reduce those handouts by half, if we can merge the 2 health authorities, if we can eliminate other duplicated services that are only duplicated due to language and find a way to bring them together under one administrative system to save money, therein we have found hundreds of millions every year already. One thing I do know is that we can't continue to raise taxes and fees because as a citizen in this province, I know we have nothing left to give. So we can bring it to a balanced budget. Both previous governments have raised taxes and fees in their first year to a point that should have been able to completely eliminate the deficit, and it hasn't happened. Now I do know there's a surplus in this budget that ended March 13th, but there is projected to be 3 more deficits at least after this one. So the will is there in my party, and the tools are there to do it, and we are absolutely committed to living within our means and needs before wants.
Thank you, Joyce. So John, how will your party balance the budget and reduce the provincial debt without cutting services?
Thank you very much, Mike. This has been an issue for many, many governments. This isn't something that my government created. It's not something the previous government created. This is something we inherited. And we need to ensure that we grow as a province. And we need to ensure that if we're going to tackle our debt and the deficit, we need to do so in a balanced way so that it doesn't target families, doesn't target seniors, doesn't target students, doesn't target small communities who need an extra hand lifted up. And I can tell you firsthand that I've been there helping out St. Stephen week after week after week since I was sworn in as your MLA. I've done the same thing for Macadam, I've done the same thing for St. Andrews, and I've done the same thing for Campobello. There are countless infrastructure projects they've been looking to try to get for over a decade, some of these communities, and they have been forgotten. They have been taken for granted, quite frankly, and we need to ensure that whether it's roads, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, whether it's infrastructure, Milltown Boulevard had a pipe going right into the St. Croix River for I don't know how long, but the Front Street hadn't been done in close to 100 years. We need to ensure that if our businesses are going to grow and if the economy is going to grow, that we need to ensure that we're investing strategically so that we get results. It's all about return on investment, and there's been so many people at my door since I've been MLA looking for road work that I can't even begin to tell you where it starts and where it stops. But we've done so much road work in the last 3 or 4 years that it just doesn't even compare to the last 10 years. And I'm telling you this because you cannot have your cake and eat it too. We got to do it in a balanced way, and we're committed to balancing the budget, as we said before, in our second mandate. And we're going to do it not on the backs of healthcare, not on the backs of hardworking New Brunswickers, but we're going to ensure it's done in a balanced way so that we can continue to grow, so the economy can continue to grow, and we can thrive as a province and be in a better position. Thank you.
Same question to you, Donna.
The Green Party is committed to a public sector that provides high-quality healthcare, education, and social programs while living within our financial and ecological means. We would remove the industrial property tax exemption for crude oil storage tanks and add industrial machinery and equipment as taxable property. We would establish border tolls on the 4-lane highways. We would petition the federal government to increase the per capita health transfer to New Brunswick to reflect the needs of our aging population. We would produce government budgets that are financially responsible, expecting budget deficits during difficult periods and surpluses at other times. One thing that we like to do is increase the Auditor General's budget over 3 years to be comparable to that of Nova Scotia for the size of our provincial budget. We feel that that would be very, very smart. We want to harmonize our corporate income tax rate with Nova Scotia and PEI. Why not? We also want to increase royalty rates for all renewable and non-renewable resources in the province to capture their full economic value and establish a New Brunswick Heritage Fund where all non-renewable royalties will be deposited, with New Brunswick government transferring only 5% in any 1 year to general revenues. We also would like to require the Department of Finance to develop and publish a tax expenditure account to track losses in provincial revenues associated with tax cuts, tax breaks, deferrals, and credits in the New Brunswick tax system. And finally, we would require unbudgeted expenditures to be reviewed by the Legislature's All-Party Standing Committee on Public Accounts, the recommendations from which would be voted on by the Legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So Greg, ending with you. How will your party balance the budget and reduce the provincial debt without cutting services?
Okay, John, excuse me. I've been writing down some notes here just as I was listening, but let's take a look at reality in terms of dollars spent and where the money's going. In the lead up to this election, you're talking about balancing the budget. The Premier of Brunswick spent $1.2 billion leading into this election. Like John Ames had so many grin and grip photographs handing out checks, I'm surprised he could raise his own hand. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Spending everywhere. So, in addition to that, Premier Gallant has hired 10,000, since he took office 4 years ago, there's 10,000 additional public servants in New Brunswick. Just show you to make matters worse, we've lost 5,800 private sector jobs. Why? Taxation, no investment, going someplace else. These are not my figures, by the way. These are figures from Herb Emery, who is one of the most recognized economists in New Brunswick and Atlantic Canada. He works at UND, so these are not made up numbers. So, take a look at this one now. Here's another one we can throw at you. When the Premier took office 4 years ago, he said, no, we're not going to touch the HST, we're not going to raise it. Well, they raised it 2%. And immediately they had $350 million coming in the front door. $350 million additional dollars by raising it. What did he do with it? He could have paid down the debt that very year. No, they went on a spending spree, and the spending spree hasn't ended. That's the type of government we can't afford. We cannot afford 4 more years of that ridiculous spending, putting us further and further in the hole.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks, Greg. Oh, you're done. Thanks, Greg. You're done. Thank you. You're done. You're done. Thank you. Very well. Not bad. Not bad. Listen, guys, that was amazing. You guys answered some very difficult questions. They were the questions from the crowd. You answered them with passion. You answered them with your own beliefs and the belief of your party. So those of us here, we thank you very much for your input. So we've now reached the point where at the 3 minutes each on your closing, it's your opportunity to touch something you maybe did not get to touch on that you wanted to, or rebut on something that you wish that you had an opportunity to do so. This is your 3 minutes, but you only get 3 minutes. So we started with John last time. We're going to start at the other end of the table and work the other way back. So Joyce, you will be going first on the closings, on the 3 minute closing. Then it will be Greg, then it will be Donna, and it will end with John. So you've got 3 minutes starting now.
Well, once again, thank you to all of you who come out. The great crowd here tonight shows how passionate you are about your riding and about this province and the state of the province's affairs. We've been discussing tonight some truly critical issues to this riding in this province, and they're tough issues, and they need real solutions. And those real solutions will only come when we get real change. I know this riding. I've lived here all my life. I care deeply about the riding. I care deeply about the province. And I am absolutely convinced, or I wouldn't be here tonight, that myself and my party are your best option for bringing that lasting and systemic change that we desperately need. It's not good enough to keep going back and forth between the Liberals and the PCs. I firmly believe that. That's why I'm doing this, because the real issues never get addressed. I've watched election cycle after election cycle. When in opposition, they say one thing. When in power, they do the same thing. If you don't believe me, go check out the CBC articles from 4 years ago. The actions were the accusations were the same, but just she was on the other foot. So the system itself needs systemic change. In order to get that change, we need new players at the table. That's the short and sweet version of why I'm here tonight. Think about that system of political elitism that's gotten this province to where we are. Think about the professionals who are forbidden to work in their jobs because we refuse to use technology. Think about the government using your tax dollars right now to fight in court those professionals, to keep them from having the full-time jobs like the arbitrator said they should have. Think about double everything that we're doing in our health authorities and school buses. Think about the solution to the province's finances has always been to raise more taxes and fees to the point that we're the highest tax and fee across Canada. Think about all the issues that you and I have talked about over the past 8, 12, 15, 20 years and how nothing has seemingly changed. We absolutely need the common sense principles of the People's Alliance to become our foundation. We're so heavily in debt, and nobody can be to blame except two parties, unfortunately, and that's not to slam any individuals, but that's to say the system that we are working within has led to that. We need to know how our tax dollars are being spent, so we have committed to increasing the Auditor General's budget to $4 million a year immediately so she can renew every contract, including the forestry contract and the Medivie contract that has taken over our extramural health and our ambulance services. With that accountability through her office, we can and will bring back honesty, accountability, transparency, and responsibility to your government. There are so many areas we can save. As your MLA, I promise I will serve you honorably. I will serve you ethically. Nobody will take more passion or energy to the table than I will. And we have come to you in this campaign with no strings attached. And that's exactly how we can go to Fredericton with no strings attached. We owe nobody, and nobody owes us, and that is your best bet for change. So I am confident in sitting here and asking you for your vote on September 24th. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your time. You've been wonderful.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you, Joyce. So Greg, you've got 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I spent as you know, 6 terms in Ottawa as a member of Parliament. And I'm running on that theme that was part of who I was when I was elected member of Parliament. Standing up and speaking out. When you go to Fredericton, you have to stand up and speak out. You have to be heard. You have to be forceful. It's the only way you get things done. I mean, we lost our courthouse because John wasn't forceful. We've got our hospital down here hollowed out because no one spoke up. Like, we have to fight for everything we have because there's other people in the province fighting for their communities. We can't be pushovers. And I will not be a pushover. On top of that, I think you have to respect the men and women that go to work every day, pay their taxes, and they expect more from government. When your telephone rings as a member of Parliament or an MLA, I've always had a telephone at home, and it could ring off the wall, but we always answered it. And I was respectful to everyone that called liberal or conservative. I mean, you do things by building goodwill and doing good things, setting an example for everyone else. I often say in Ottawa, I never embarrass myself, my family, my government, or the country. So I have a track record that tells you that I will work hard, and I'll work hard every day for you. I'm asking for your support on election day. I want your support for one day. And I'll work 365 days a year for 4 years on your behalf, guaranteed. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg. So Donna, you've got 3 minutes to wrap up.
I do not want to be MLA to serve myself. I've been serving Charlotte County Volunteer Center and Food Bank for 25 years. Now I want to serve all of you. I stand here today because of the people I've met and the stories I've heard. Once I witnessed a child arriving too late for a breakfast program. The bell had rung and the volunteer had to tell that child, "You are too late for food this morning, come back at recess." Saddest thing I'd ever saw, that child went without. No child in our community should ever have to do without a meal. Each spring, many families must go without electricity. They are disconnected because they cannot pay their winter heating bills. Often that means going without electricity for 100 or more days. Sometimes they give up and they just move annually if they don't have a mortgage. For those who heat with oil, it is no better. Oil companies require minimum purchase and demand payment on site. Local support agencies try to help, but I have been a witness to oil trucks driving away in the middle of winter because the payment was not waiting on site at the house. Food banks often run out of money and food. The food they have is often secondhand and substandard. Food bank clients have needs that food banks cannot provide, such as affordable housing, enough money to live on, even healthy food or enough food for everyone. The Green Party will work to help everyone have food, shelter, health, care, education, and the support they need. People need help, and so does our environment. Our new Blue Bin recycling program is a fantastic start, but it's only a start. The Green Party will safeguard our farmland, our water, our forests, now and into the future. The Green Party plan will work for individuals, families, community, and the environment. Our leader, David Kuhn, has won respect from across Canada and across party lines. Together, we will transform New Brunswick into a place future generations will want to call home. It's time for change. Let's make New Brunswick the first green province in Canada. It starts here at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. John, you have 3 minutes to wrap up.
Thank you very much, Mike. Listen, there's some comments made today about the carbon tax hurting all families. I can tell you right now, the Liberal plan is not that touch anybody. It's to make sure that the carbon system that's in place is for big polluters. And I can tell you, anything that's over 50,000 tons is going to be an industrial polluter, and we don't have any here in our region. So I'm proud to say that we won't, with the Liberal plan, it will not be touched, contrary to what other people are trying to misguide you into believing. And I will say that I am in this and have been in this for the right reasons. There are other people sometimes that get their pants in a knot and they like to do things for themselves. I can tell you, I have been in this role because I love this place and I love the people in this place, and I will continue to advocate on behalf of everybody that's in St. Croix, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of who you are or where you came from. Serving the public in St. Croix has been one of the biggest honors I've ever had in my life. I've learned a lot in the last 4 years, and I've forged many relationships both with supporters and critics. And that's what a true leader does. They listen to those, even if they're screaming down your neck and telling you everything and calling you every name in the book. It's your job to listen, and it's your job to act. You may not always get what you want, and you may not always be able to get what everybody is asking you to get, but it's your job to work and listen to everybody. And it's at the grassroots level many times that we see change happen. And I can tell you, with all the projects and all the initiatives, and yes, I am extremely proud of working with these people in accomplishing all these goals, because that's where it started. I didn't wake up in the morning and say, how am I going to spend my day making an announcement? How am I going to spend $1 million? No, it starts with the grassroots organizations, whether it be nonprofit and or business. People need assistance, and that's what our job is for as elected officials. At the end of the day, opinions may change, titles may change, the world changes all the time. What keeps us unified is our pursuit and dedication to improve and grow. I've seen that growth in our region in the last few years, and I do wish to continue to be a strategic partner in that growth. There has been many successful projects and opportunities to come to light, and I believe we can and will continue to see more together. I want to conclude by saying thank you to all the people of the St. Croix region. You have made me a stronger person, a prouder New Brunswicker, and most of all, you have given me hope for a better future. And I sincerely believe that things are better now than they were 4 years ago here in the St. Croix region. And I would appreciate your support on September 24th, and I look forward to having constant dialogue with you over the next 4 years. Have a great evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to you four people so kind to put your name forward. That was an amazing job for being on the hot seat. The catcalling was to a minimum. Got to say, this is one of the best ones we've ever done for keeping it kind. So on behalf of the Chamber, thank you all for coming out. Thank you both.
A news and public affairs production of CHCO TV, New Brunswick's only source for independent community television.